Although it was later overshadowed by the terrible events in Norway, there was some encouraging news from elsewhere in Europe earlier in the week. On Wednesday, the Irish Prime Minister, Enda Kenny, made an unprecedented speech in which he directly attacked the hypocrisy, arrogance, deception and inhumanity of the Catholic Church in Ireland. He expressed his outrage at the Church's policy of putting its own interests ahead of the children that it had raped and tortured over the years. There were calls in Parliament for the Church to publish the findings of its audits, and even suggestions that the Irish government should work with other governments to investigate further. Given Ireland's long history as a staunchly Catholic nation, this strikes me as a major development in the Irish government's, and hopefully its people's, relationship with the Vatican. Mr. Kenny himself said that the relationship between the state and the Church could never be the same again. I'm hoping that is the case. The betrayal of trust, the continued focus on maintaining the Church's power and reputation, even after assurances to the contrary have been given, all these have, I hope, caused irreparable damage to the relationship between the Catholic Church and the Irish government. I was further encouraged to read that some Irish parliamentarians had gone so far as to call for the expulsion of the papal nuncio from Ireland in protest at the Vatican's attitude towards the allegations and in the investigation. Although this seems to be unlikely to happen, the politicians feel brave enough for it to be voiced in the Irish Parliament shows just how far out of favour the Church has fallen. The Archbishop of Dublin responded by calling Kenny's attack a wake-up call for clergy. He then went on to paint a picture of a local cabal in Cloyne who managed the cover-up in direct contravention of the orders sent out by Ratzinger in 2001. Now, anyone who's seen the Ratzinger letter knows that this is disingenuous. Although the letter doesn't explicitly instruct the clergy not to contact the local authorities, it does instruct them to manage investigations internally, and that any internal investigations are subject to papal secrecy. For Archbishop Martin to try and paint the situation in Ireland as the result of a set of rogue local clergy acting against the express wishes of the Vatican is misleading. More so when you consider that the cover-up is not limited to Ireland, it's a global outrage. Any further claims by the Vatican that things have changed and it no longer puts its own interests first can be disregarded as a lie. In a current case in the English High Court, the Catholic Church has claimed that it is not vicariously liable for priests' actions. This is another example of continuing their policy of putting the Church's interests ahead of the defenceless victims of their atrocities. So far as the Church is concerned, the clergy who allowed visiting rapists to attack children, either through their negligence or indifference, the senior clergy who enabled child rapists to continue attacking children by protecting their attackers and moving them from parish to parish, the priests who absolved the rapists and torturers of their sins, even though the offenders went on to offend again and again. None of these, they claim, are the responsibility of the Church, because the relationship between the bishop and a parish priest does not amount to anything akin to employment. It seems that they still just don't get it, and I'm hoping that they won't for a while yet, so that public disgust at their disgraceful attitude has time to grow ever stronger. Hopefully we'll have some more good news in the next week or so when this ridiculous defence gets thrown out of court. The Vatican would like nothing more than for this to go away, as it has done in the past. But when a corrupt organisation that enables criminal activity gets exposed, there's a critical point at which politicians who previously cozied up to the powerful start backing off. And at this point, the offenders find that their real troubles are just starting. It becomes less of an exercise in damage control and more a question of surviving at all. That point seems to have passed for News International, and as Rupert Murdoch can testify, once the snowball has taken on momentum of its own, and the politicians perform a 180-degree turn in the face of public pressure, there's no stopping the carnage. I can only hope that Kenny's speech last week was the beginning, not the end, and that the Vatican's own point of no return is not far off.